A very good morning to you. It's good to see you right here on Your World. And of course, in this hour, again, you all know the conversations that we usually have. But today we want to talk about something slightly different, and I'm pretty sure we've never had such a conversation right here on Your World. And this is as far as animal feeds are concerned, all right? And of course, the balance of it all and the urgent interventions that need to happen. Before we came on air, David was telling me, I hope I will not get angry when we're talking about feeds and animal feeds and do we have enough fodder for animals and whatnot, all right? So it's a very important conversation, really, to have this morning, because Kenya and many other African countries have faced existential threats, and this is on the livestock sector because of the weak feed and fodder systems. And if you grew up in shags like I did, majority of us thought, I see animals eat grass, so you let them go yonder, all right, and then they come back in the evening and that's it, all right? So why is it that we should be very keen in terms of what we're feeding our animals and what is available, their nutrients, and what that does not only to the animal but to also address cases of food crisis and also to the environment as well. So it's gonna be a lot of conversation this morning, but to help us with the same, on my immediate left we have Dr. Omalo Kinyanju, who's an animal health expert, IGAD Center for Pastoral Areas and Livestock Development. Good to have you this morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
All right, thank you for making time for us. And of course, next to him we have David Miner, who's the feed and fodder business development expert from the African Union. Good to have you this morning. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Two Davids in one meeting.
Yeah.
What are the what are the chances?
It's a good coincidence.
David Otieno, co-manager, Osquest, right? Osquest Farm. Good to have you as well. This morning I was watching what you guys do at Osquest Farm, and I'm like, this is very fascinating. To see how from the growing process to the harvesting and to the storage as well. And one of the things that you said at some point is we need to preserve the moisture content. And I was thinking, okay, but sometimes we don't care about that. We just think, I see the animal, let them go feed, and then come back home in the evening with milk for the cows and whatnot. But you'll tell us why that is very important. And I just want to begin with you, Dr. Omalo. Most of the time when we're talking about, livestock, right? Concerns about what they feed on is not usually a case for so many people, all right? And like I said, that is what we'll be delving deeper into today's conversation. But let's just understand, what is the current situation right now as we speak, not only in the country, but also across the region as well? What does it look like? What is the situation? What exactly are we dealing with?
Thank you very much for having me in this conversation.
Yeah.
It is indeed a real pleasure. As you said, I work for ICAD, which covers 8 countries in the region, that is Sudan, South Sudan, Uganda, Kenya, Somalia, Ethiopia, Djibouti, and Eritrea.
All right.
And looking at the region, actually it has really been on the receiving end, especially looking at the 2020, 2021, and 2022 drought. The region really suffered quite a lot because of inadequate animal feed. Because generally in that drought, they lost around 10 million heads of livestock. So that one brings the conversation that animal feed, that is very important. So what should one do? And of course, as we talk of animal feed, it is not just any. We really have also to mind what kind of feed are they eating. Because if they eat balanced diet, just the way humans we are, if we eat balanced diet, we will produce better and we will perform better. And same to animals. If they have feed that are adequate in metabolizable energy, in crude protein, and the dry matter, you will find that the production in terms of milk will be high. The production in terms of meat will also be high. Even the quality of the hide will be good. So it's not just about
what they eat,
the quantity, but also quality really matters. Yes.
All right. So where are we? What is the current situation in terms of the availability of quality? What Dr. Omalo is saying, quality at that matter. So what is the current situation?
Yeah. Let me allow me to also draw a link between the feed and our needs, as a region, as a country, because it's also a very important connection that we miss in a lot of times. If you look at the example of when we run out of milk, for example, and you see there's a really scarcity. Sometimes it hasn't happened recently in Kenya, but I've seen it in Ethiopia, where the shopkeeper will say that you can only buy 2 packets. You can't, even if you have a baby, you can't buy more because we have this limitation and so on. Now, when we see that shortage, what comes to our mind is how do we fill that gap? How do we import more? How do we get approvals from the cabinet to be able to bring what is missing? But we really think that how do we ensure that this does not happen again? That's how the connection with the feed comes. It's about nutrition, because no one feeds a cow or a bull, for either for milk or for meat for feeding sake. Yes, it's about that animal to be healthy and to grow on target, but then that animal is also a source of food for humans. So when we have no food, we should be able to think back and what did we not do? It means that we didn't feed our animals because we are a continent that is depending on these animals almost desperately. That linkage sometimes we miss, and that's why then the communication about our feed problem remains within the feed language, and it doesn't seem to leave the box and enter into the nutrition requirement language. That we see that a hungry animal will lead to a hungry child, will lead to a mother who is expecting not having the right nutrition to be able to give birth to a healthy baby. When that connection is not done, then the emotional, the anger, and the disappointment we should have by underperforming on the feed sector does not arise. Because the connection with the human requirement for nutrition, for growth, for employment is missing. So, and I think that is why we feel desperate, because in as much as we're in a problem, and I think Dr. Omalo has explained how desperate we are on feed, because we keep being hit up and about by the climate changes. It is not very much because of what it does to us or what it does to animals. It's further than that. It's far-fetched because it's far-reaching, because it goes to demonstrate how food insecure then we become because we didn't take care of where it all begins, the feed subject. And I'm happy that we can discuss that today.
Absolutely. Because again, like I said, majority of the farmers, and we're talking about large-scale farmers, but we also have smallholder farmers as well who are into livestock production, right? So then when it comes to empowerment and for them to understand what is important in terms of what they're feeding their animals, because again, like you're saying, it does not just end there. There is a full circle towards the same. So I'm going to call you Mr. Otieno, this is because now they're two Davids. The question. So then, what is it about, first of all, feeding? And I like what you're saying, it does not have to end there at feeding. But what is it? What qualifies as a good feed for our livestock? What is not? What are their nutritional needs different from, everything else? Can we just, first of all, understand that aspect so that when we say, this would lead to a hungry child if we do not, feed the animal well, we have a proper understanding of what it's all about. But can we just understand the basics, nutritional needs, and what qualifies as a good feeder or feed or not?
Sure, thanks so much. And I think as Dr. Malwa started, he said to get quality meat, quality milk, and any animal product that you want to produce, you must have good nutrition for your animals. So the quality of production starts at your nutrition. It's just like us. If you don't eat a balanced diet, you won't be productive at all. You won't be as productive as people who are having the balanced diet. So for animals too, the most important thing is proper nutrition. Animals do need the protein, they do need the energy, they do need vitamins, and they also need water. So as we talk about fodder, there are also other things that we are leaving out, like the water and micro and macronutrients. So for quality feed, like for us, when you do produce a feed and supply feed to farmers, we do ensure that we are supplying to farmers whatever is good and quality for their animals. It's not about the quantity that your cow will eat or the amount of food, but the quality also matters.
Yeah.
So when you're in production, many people believe that maybe hay is the only fodder that animals need.
Yeah.
But you will realize that the more you store your hay, the more the nutritional value deteriorates.
Yeah.
So if we continue building our fodder bands, like hay bands, are we doing justice to animals? Are we really, are we just farming for the sake of farming, or we have our animals at heart?
Okay.
When you're doing your own shopping in the supermarket, what do? You get some milk, you get some sugar, you will get meat,
You get
but
eggs.
also
Yeah.
think of your animals the same way. They need all those nutritional
Yeah.
components.
So then what is the source? Because again, easy for us humans, you say proteins, you get that from
Yeah.
animals or plants, right? Your vitamins, you get it from here. So but for the animals, what exactly does that, like what gives what in terms
Sure.
of their nutritional content? And I'm asking that because again, like I said, some farmers would, if you come from where I come from, maize stock, we'll just give that to either, when it's still green, or when we wait until it's dried, and then we shred it, and then we give it to the animals, and we say we have fed our animals. But
Sure.
that is not only the case, as far as then ensuring that they have the nutritional needs, that the animal needs.
Yeah, so the main source of all these nutrients is because cows won't feed on meat.
True.
Yeah. So we have a high nutritive fodders. Like for us, we do forage sorghum, which is very high in protein.
Yeah.
From maize, you can get a maize jam, you can get a wheat bran, you can have sunflower cake or seed, and all these form different components of the animal nutrition. So every person plays a small part in the whole picture. Yeah, so the pie is too big, but everyone has to take a portion of the pie to supply all these nutrients to the animal. So it's upon the farmer to get we call it a TMR, or total mixed ration, for the animals depending on the needs. So you will get some fodder, maybe you need some hay for roughage, you need some green matter, you need some dry matter.
Yeah.
So all these things are what you're looking into to make sure that our cows or animals are comfortable and productive.
All right. So,
But can I bring
yes,
an interesting dimension
go
to that?
ahead.
Huh?
Yeah.
The discussion you're having with Otieno is, it sounds very nice because you're talking about the requirement, almost ideal requirement for a healthy animal. And he's an animal health expert. Of course, he actually knows a lot more than I do because for me, I'm in business. But I'll tell you this, the animals that he mentioned, the 10,000 heads of cattle that died.
10 million.
10 million, sorry,
Yes.
10 million.
Yeah.
They didn't die because they lacked the balanced diet.
You're right.
They actually lacked
Because it's
anything
not there
to
at
eat.
all.
There was nothing. There's no harm understanding what is actually the dietary requirement for an animal that is growing for meat, that is being fattened for meat or fat or being producing milk.
Yeah.
Because really, we have to discuss quality and best practices, and we have to compete with the rest of the world on productivity, whether it's for poultry or for what other livestock production we are doing. But if you look back at where you began, what is the situation like? Animals died because there was
There's
nothing
at
to
all.
eat.
Absolutely. And that was going to
In
be
fact,
my next question for him.
if-
Why
yeah,
aren't
that's
we
the-
feed secure? Because if you look at our climate, it's very good to grow, again, like you said, hay. You also talked about wheat at some point. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, you did, yeah.
And grass,
Yeah.
So our climate is very favorable for that, but still we're not feed secure for our animals, right? So the big question is why?
Actually, that is a very important question because sometimes we look and wonder for like that drought that kill a number of animals.
Yeah, the worst
Ethiopia
that we
actually was
experienced here in the
leading,
country,
Kenya, Somalia followed, Kenya followed, Djibouti there were a few, South Sudan there were a few. Sudan, less than 800 animals died because of lack of feed.
Right.
So you look at it and wonder, why did Sudan lose very few? And yet when you look at it, it is more of a desert, arid, semi-arid. The arable land is very low. Yeah. Why? It is because of strategies.
All right.
When you go on the ground, you will find that they have done quite a lot of irrigation, which really helps to make sure that there is further production under irrigation.
All right.
Where there is a bit of rain, they make maximum use of it. You will find they have grown maize, they have grown sorghum. Not necessarily that they are going to harvest to get the maize or the cereal, but it is for their livestock. Such that in the event that they fail to harvest, their livestock actually will benefit from it. So that is something that we've really been lacking sometimes. Look at now, we are expecting the El Nino that is coming. And we are very happy that since March, we have had good rains. So there has been enough pasture, there has been enough fodder, but we have challenges. This excess pasture, it is not being harvested and conserved. Yeah. When you go to sometimes to a number of hay stores, you find that they are empty. And yet, we are expecting a dry spell from January. Even this El Nino that is coming, it's good that according to the prediction of CACOF, Great Horn of Africa Climate Outlook Forum, that predicted that we are going to have El Nino from October to about December.
September, thereabout. Yeah.
So can we utilize these rains well?
But it's not good because it's going to create havoc.
Of course, it is. Whatever we do, it will be there. So we need just to put in strategies.
Okay.
How can we utilize it well?
All right.
Because one, we can grow commercial fodder, flat plain fodder. We can harvest the water that we can utilize later. We can harvest the excess pasture or fodder. Even the standing hay, say in the ranges, we can harvest, such that when the dry spell starts in January, February, March, at least there will be something. But you find most of the time, especially pastoralists who are normally hard hit, they say grass is God given. How do I how do I keep it? How do I preserve it?
To wait for the
And yet they are always the hardest hit. So I'm appealing to Kenyans and others that let us utilize these El Nino rains that is coming very well to make sure that we have feed sufficient. It can be at household level. It can be at, like in Kenya, at count level. If counties put in place good mechanisms to help people to harvest and conserve, that will be very good.
But even as we're saying, yes, we farmers should be able to, first of all, make do with what is available, but also make sure that we preserve, because again, the dry spells are going to come, right? We do not want to lose our livestock, but sadly, that is the situation. In some parts of the country, excuse me, and even across the region, the hardest hit because it is the same sort of like weather pattern year long. It's usually dry spells that their livestock do not have anything to eat. So what is it? The question is, what is it that then farmers should know? Livestock, those who are involved in livestock production need to know, as far as not only just harvesting, but also, like you're saying, preserving. And for those ones who, and especially for the northern part of the country, where it's usually dry almost, all year round. So then what is it in terms of either changing tax and all those things? You're saying strategy is one of the biggest issues. Very quickly, David, what are some of these other challenges? Because we have almost everything that we need to make sure that we are feed secure, but we're not.
I think it all begins with how well we have placed this topic in our priorities.
All right.
And I gave an example earlier that when we lack this, we think about how to fix it. Now think about this. You have a child who is well fed. When the cold comes, they are better able to deal with the effects of the cold or harsh climate without getting sick because they are well fed. That's one. But there's the other way of starving that child, and when it's cold, you look for a heavy jacket so that you can help them cope with the cold. which one is more sustainable? Is it feeding the kid well, or is it having a stunted kid who is weak and thin, and then looking for a heavy jacket? Because a jacket you can just buy the next day.
True.
But the more sustainable method is to grow a strong kid, so that even if you need a jacket, they already have a strong structure which has come out of a feeding for a long time. So one is in the systems, the other one is in the quick action, quick reactions, window dressing, like basically covering a crisis with a quick action that does not serve, it doesn't help in the long term. So how do we then go to the direction of feeding our child correct so that they can be able to withstand the harsh climate? Now, the discussion about fodder sometimes goes to the direction of what farmers can do and puts a lot of burden on the farmers preserve, on the farmers, El Nino is coming, and those are very good things to say, that we have rains coming, plant every space that you can get so that the rains can find planted fields, and we have a bumper harvest in January. Two, we have lost a lot, and we are vulnerable sector, feed sector. Mop up all the ready feed, the hays, the straws that are now in the fields, let them be harvested, because when the rains comes, we cannot bale again, because then it will not be possible, even movement will be a problem. Now, those are the things that we're telling farmers to do, and that is very important in the very short term, or in the immediate. But now in the longer term, how must we profile this discussion so that fodder is discussed in the priorities of government? You see, Dr. Amara is working in the region. He says that only Sudan had an easier outcome in the last drought, meaning that all the other countries are struggling with a negative feed balance. They have more animals than they can feed. Kenya has estimated in the last few months that they are actually 60% deficit, meaning that we can only feed 40% of the animals we have. This may change from time to time, but already having that at one point is very desperate, isn't it? So what is the solution? Is it to say, farmers, wherever you are, whether you're in beef or in poultry, you're in pigs or you're in dairy, do the best you can. But is it also bringing this as a strategic priority of the government, that when we see it in the various governments, when they have priority papers on what they must do, every new government, that it is put on a high pitch. Earlier this year, we had a very big event, Dr. Amalo and I were there, the Meat Expo. And I noted something. If it's about meat, a lot of exhibitions were about meat, various meats, how to cook and whatever. But there was hardly any stall on that exhibition showing grass. Can you see what I told you then? That we have very weak connection between what we finally eat and where it actually comes from. So for me, as long as the discussions can be elevated so that we are discussing where it comes from, and when the cabinet secretary arrives, it doesn't matter which country, they are coming to say we have this meat because we got good grass, or we don't have meat because we didn't have grass.
And I'm just going to throw that question back to you, because you're from different organizations, very important at that matter, to push for these conversations. So of course I'm just going to ask you, so what has been done so far? What exactly is not working? And I'm also going to come back to you, Mr. David Otieno, to understand how much of this information, first of all, do farmers know? Okay, what is not being done? What sort of like policies, conversation? Because again, it's across the region. We import, milk products or eggs, or and we export as well. So it's like cross-border, sort of like a business. So what is it that then should be standard across the region, so that we do not have, like, let's say, poor quality, because there's that conversation again, poor quality milk or poor quality eggs coming from country X into the country, and yet as we're giving them good quality meat, and all those things. So policies, like what you're saying, top priority conversations from governments and also organizations that are involved in the same, and also the farmers as well, because we cannot talk about these things without talking about them in terms of how much information that they need to know in terms of making the link. So we're taking a break, but when we come back, I'll start with you in terms of then what is not being done, but also get to understand from David Otieno as well in terms of what farmers need to know and how much of it they know. But we're taking a short break right here on Your World. Stay with us. When we come back, there's still so much to discuss, and this is as far as our animal feed, the balance of it all, and what are some of the urgent interventions that should be made as soon as now. See you shortly.
with your best skin with Nivea Nourishing Cocoa Body Lotion with 5-in-1 Complete Care. The deeply nourishing formula prevents your skin from drying with precious cocoa butter and deep moisture for smooth and healthy looking skin. It's Butter's birthday month and you can enjoy free shopping of up to 500 bob. Offer starts at 2,499 only. Visit your nearest Butter store today.
In every corner of Africa, leaders rise. From corporate pioneers to sports champions, innovative minds, and creative souls. You are the leaders of tomorrow, and we want to celebrate you. Are you a leader in your pack? Nominate yourself or someone you know for this year's Top 40 Under 40 and be part of the movement. Visit www.top40.bdafrica.com to submit your nomination.
It's Butter's birthday month and you can enjoy free shopping of up to 500 bob. Offer starts at 2,499 only. Visit your nearest Butter store today.
All right. Okay. Okay, all right, let's pick up the conversation from there, but welcome back. The show is your world, and we are talking about animal feed balance and the urgent interventions that should be there right here on the show. And I have three gentlemen with me in studio today to help us really understand where, first of all, did the rain start beating us? Literally, you know, or not, and what are some of the solutions that need to happen as soon as now. But again, before we went on a break, David Maina, for instance, right? I was going to say, I'll start with you to then tell us what exactly should happen. But before that, can we just speak to Otieno very quickly in terms of the information, you know, that has to happen for the farmers, what they need to know and understand, so that, you know, they don't just give the animal the feed, right, just because an animal has to eat, all right, or livestock have to eat, but at the end of the day they know what exactly we're feeding, you know, this animal, and how will that then translate in terms of the quality of meat. He talked about hide at some point, milk, and at the same time. So how much of it do they know? What is it that they need to know?
Thanks, Winnie. And I think farmers have a lot of information at the moment, and first thing, what we know, the rains are coming. Okay. And it's going to be soon. So almost, if not all the farmers, have planned for what they are going to grow this season. All right. And if you have an acre, what portion have you set aside for your animals? Because now that's where the problem will start. All right. Yeah. Because as soon as we see some greens in the field, people will start saying, oh, animals have enough feed, so let's grow our own food crop. Yeah. So as you think about yourself, you're planning for the next 3 months for your own feed. Are you planning for your animals? So people have that information, that it's going to rain, but not a greater percentage are ready to grow fodder for their animals. Secondly, we have aggressive farmers in Kenya. And I can tell you, everyone, including all the panelists here, are farmers. We're all farmers. Yeah. And we do great in farming. With a life skill. Yeah, but as you do your own farming, are you thinking about your animals? Because why are we farming at the end of the day? To make money. You want to grow some maize, harvest, get money. Grow beans, harvest, get some money. You are feeding your animals so that you can get good money out of them. So if we have that information, are you ready to grow fodder and preserve it for your animals for the near future? Because what we know as farmers, in the next like 2 years, it's been a cycle. We are going to go back to drought. Our barns will be full of maize, but we don't have any fodder banks. Are we ready to grow some fodder and have them in fodder banks or fodder reserve, so that when the time comes that we have the drought, we are not losing our animals?
Yeah.
So all this information is available to us as farmers, is available to us as Kenyans, and that's what we should be thinking about. What percentage of your arable land are you setting aside for your animals?
Yeah, majority of the times for a lot of people there's that competition between, so I have this piece of land, so it's a competition between food for consumption, humans, versus food or animal feed. So it's like we just dedicate like a small portion somewhere pale kwa corner for animals. So and like you're saying, there is the information is out there. The farmers know what they need to do, right? But then again, so then if that is the case, then why are we here? Why are we in this situation where we're losing millions and millions of our livestock to drought, or to the changing weather patterns? Why are we here?
I think we are here because of misplaced priorities.
Okay.
We don't prioritize our animals, we prioritize ourselves. Because as you know, the population of animals is increasing day in, day out.
Yeah.
But the arable land, the area is decreasing every day. So how are you going to feed animals? And if you can't feed them, why have them? If you can't feed 10 kids, why go and have 10 kids?
Yeah.
So we have, as farmers, and as when I talk about farmers, we have livestock farmers and maybe feed farmers, and we have misplaced priorities. Because like now, if I'm a farmer and I say I'm going to grow some maize and harvest in the next 3 months, get 100,000, but my fodder is going to be in store for the next 2 years, and I'm not going to be getting anything from it. What are you going to grow? You are going to go for the maize, so that you harvest your maize, get your money very fast, but you're not planning forward for your animals. So as I was saying, we should have our priorities right. As we are planning for ourselves, let's also plan for animals. And if we can't plan for them, then do away with them.
Okay.
Leave those people who can do it to do it.
All right.
And in the next few years, and you'll bear me witness, because it's a cycle. We were talking about it, I think 2 months ago, in a conference in Naivasha, and we are like, what's going to happen in the next 2 years when we are back to the drought? Like at the moment here, we are going to El Nino and everyone is happy. But the moment we see our fields are green, everyone will be grazing their cattle in the fields. We don't have any rangelands that are set aside for hay. We don't have farmers that are ready to grow fodder and preserve for future use. We also need the government to come in and support the farmers, because not everyone will have to build a fodder reserve. Can we have fodder banks in every county, so that when we are in drought season, at least the county governments in working hand in hand with the national governments and the farmers can join hands and support one another.
Okay. All right, I hear you, because there's a lot of farmers, again, who watches this morning, and such information is very important. What you're saying is misplaced priorities. Dr. Ahmad, I wonder what you have to say to this. So then how do we get it right? Because, and this is across the region, why is it that we have some other countries who are very feed secure, right? They're not losing millions of livestock as other countries are. So then how do we get it right? What are some of the priority areas that need to be focused on right now? Such conversations like, David was saying here, we need to have these conversations from the top level, all right? But that is not happening, clearly. And that is why we're here today having this conversation. So then how do we get it right?
Thank you very much, Winnie. Actually, David Otieno talks more of the dairy farmers, because those are the ones who can set aside an acre for their livestock. I represent the pastoralists, and these are the ones who are used to communal land. Preservation is an issue.
Yeah.
But then they need to have a mindset change. Because when we did the feed inventory and balance sheet, in Kenya, it indicated very well that they are keeping 2.4 times more livestock than what the land can carry.
Yeah.
So what does that tell us? The pressure being inserted on that land is very high.
All right.
In the ASAL areas, the 23 ASAL, it indicated over 80% negative feed balance. That is in terms of metabolizable energy, crude protein, as well as crude protein, metabolizable energy, and and dry matter. So these people need to have the mindset of doing commercial production.
All right.
Such that there can be offtake. Like in Kenya, we have Kenya Meat Commission that has been given money to help accelerate livestock offtake in these areas that are always hardest hit. Because when you look at the counties that lost those because the government gives 2.4 to 2.5 million heads of livestock that were lost. And it's good that you people also took very good documentaries. Even wildlife were dying. It was in the ASAL areas.
Yeah.
So if these people can actually keep livestock for sale, it will help to reduce the pressure on this land.
But then the question is, what are they feeding the livestock with? Because first of all, there's nothing.
No,
Okay.
there is something.
Okay.
It is not that there is nothing.
Yeah.
Because when you go to pastoral areas, they have very good survival strategies.
Okay.
One is migration into
move
where
from
there are
point A
pastures.
to where it's available. All right.
Yeah. Then two, they also give to their relatives, friends, at least to keep.
Yeah.
So if they have reduced numbers and put money in the pocket, maybe they have sold to KMC or any other traders, because when the condition of the animals also reduced, you had where animals were being sold for 100 shillings.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
it
And
was very
those-
sad.
those
Can
gonna be
he
my
restock
concern,
with
yeah.
100 shillings when the rain comes? No. So if he can also sell, it will reduce first pressure of the little pasture that is still around the homestead. Two, he will have money in the pocket to restock when the rains come.
All right.
And also, like in Kenya and other countries, we have very good early warning tools. Yeah, like now we are expecting El Nino. When the drought comes, they will tell us. So with this information that comes in, can they also utilize?
All right.
We are very happy that some of the pastoral communities are now actually keeping livestock for commercial purpose.
Yeah.
But others are still keeping for social status. And those who are keeping for social status are the ones who are losing quite a lot. Come to now the medium and highland areas, they need to know how to utilize also their feed. When you look at the feed wastage and you monetize it, you find that quite a lot of feed is wasted. I'm happy you said you come from Kitale. I also come from Kitale. When you go there, you go to the fields where they are harvesting maize. A lot of crop
wastage,
residue
that's
is
true.
just wasted.
Yeah.
Can it actually be taken, be crushed? Because now there are so many machines that can easily crush and they will come in the home. Then you can conserve. But you will find it just goes to waste. They burn it. Then after a short time, there is no feed.
There's nothing
So
for them.
if they can also monetize, put value on that wastage, they will see that actual conservation will help them to see that they go through the dry spell. Because like in Trans Nzoia, we talk of dry spell. There is no drought as compared to these other
To the
places.
other parts of the country.
Yes.
All right, and that's what we said. There's some people who face it rough as compared to the others. And this, it doesn't matter whether you are in livestock production or not, even in general, because again, like I said, children are dying, children are wasting away, people are dying of hunger and starvation. So David, during the break you were asking, so then what would be the magic bullet? I'm just going to ask you that question as well. So what exactly would be the magic bullet so that we save ourselves from the current situation? And even years later, because you talked about more of preparation, getting ready, let's not wait until it starts raining for us to think, oh, okay, we need to do this. Let's prepare, before that, so that again, we reduce the adverse effects of, the changing weather patterns, the availability, first of all, of these feeds for the animals.
Yeah, and I think it all begins by knowing where we are, where we stand. If I borrow from the practice of medicine, they don't recommend a cure or a prescription before they do a diagnosis.
Yeah.
Understanding where do we stand. This region, the East African region, the IGAD region, forms part of the fastest growing populations, compared to the rest of Africa. So we have some of the fastest growing countries. Now, when you have a burden of a growing population, which is also good, not a bad idea, then what comes up is that you have a higher burden to feed the population. And then two, the burden of employing them. So those are two serious indicators of economic development.
All right.
If you can't feed them, then you're importing, you have a problem. I don't have to go into the economics of that. Now, if you can't employ them, you have a bigger problem, because then you have a population that is not bringing value to the country, and they are depending on what the government can afford to feed them. So they are connected. So if you have that, a growing population, then how is productivity matched to that? So we have a challenge with productivity. If you look at the sector on the continuum of, on one side we have sustainability, which is the desired end. On the other side, we have vulnerability, which is the undesirable end. So where do we stand? So if you look at productivity per acre of any fodder, how we manage our rangelands, where the pastoral communities are grazing, how we generally manage the feed resource we have, the mopping up of the residues of maize right now, or the hays and the straws that are in the farm and that are about to be hit by the rain. How we manage, are we on the side of being sustainable, on the side of being vulnerable? Now, the magnitude of the challenge that we get when you have a climate challenge like drought or other challenges that come to compound that is what determines where the magic bullet should be. So look at it. We have lost 2.5 million heads of cattle in Kenya. If you bring it that to value, if you just do the life value of those animals, that is money that could run at least 2 counties the whole year. Somalia lost a lot more. The value would have, if I bring it to Kenyan understanding, it can run half of the counties we have, 27 counties actually, for a whole year.
All right.
Now, if you're talking about that amount of value of the exchequer, would the intervention then be to tell the farmers to do something, or for this discussion to be brought to a level where it's now a big priority for every planning government to include it in their planning, so that we have major investments? Because you see, if we limit the investment in feed fodder to what the farmer can afford, to what the farmer can get from a bank or from their financier, then it is going to be up to that limit. But then we have to look at it. If the disaster is macro, then the intervention must be macro. We can't have a disaster that is macro level, and I'm saying at the national level, at the regional level, is to use some common terminology. Then we are trying to say farmers do that, bank do that, give the farmers loans. That it's okay, but it's not enough. It has to be that can we be able to inject huge investments that can assure us that we have pastures just as much as the livestock that we have.
All right.
That may mean that we have actually requested for additional funds at the county level, at country level, or given incentives to investors who are saying, I'm coming to your country to invest in fodder. Those people are the ones who deserve a tax holiday. Right now, there are many people who get tax holidays because they are bringing some interesting ideas to the country. That should now be one of the interesting ideas. Why? Because it is coming to rescue livelihoods, it's coming to rescue lives, it's coming to rescue nutritional challenges that we have and that we have grappled with for a long time. So when we see countries reporting a negative feed balance, and worse off, countries that don't know where they are beginning, they have not even calculated to see how vulnerable or how sustainable they are, it actually begins there. I would actually say any state or any county begins by knowing, by the way, if we are going to take this conversation seriously and put it where it belongs, can we first of all begin by knowing where are we? How many animals do we have in this county? It doesn't have to go to the country level. It can be facilitated for countries that have done devolution, or they have been able to split their management governance to the units. Then it's actually much easier. Because then the minister says, let me see the state of every county. How prepared are we? And how does that also inform us on how we should prepare for the incoming rains? Because if we don't know, then we look at rains as a way to, we can grow more and harvest more. But there's really nothing being injected that can give us a long-term benefit that is going to move us a unit or two more towards the direction of sustainability and away from vulnerability. Because if we don't do anything that is going to move us, then it means that if we have the next challenge, and most likely it is climate. He says it's actually predictable.
Yeah.
But you see what happens? You also don't predict how many disasters are going to befall on you. You might have a drought. Imagine we had a drought, then we had a COVID, then a drought, then Russia, Ukraine. I mean, look at how how the effects were compounded.
Yeah.
Who could know that we could have 3 disasters happening at the same time? And yet, the effect on each of the economies depended on how well they were prepared for this. Not because they knew they were coming, but because you need to feed your people. Then you're better prepared.
All right.
So I think it is, most importantly, by the time we leave the discussion, if you have managed to convince people that this is an issue as big as food security for populations, then of course begin to think where it all begins. Then of course we have better interventions and investment, and I think business solutions are possible.
Yeah.
These guys are producing fodder.
Exactly.
He never mentioned irrigation. Can you imagine? And you're talking about areas, majority of areas in Kenya which are considered to be low potential, mid potential, are actually
doing very well.
There is such an area, but they have not done any irrigation unit, and they are producing high energy, high starch forages. How much more would we do if we are not even going to the challenge of producing the thick stems? You're talking about grasses. How much can we do with little resources? But the question is, are we thinking about it? Are we allocating money to it? Are we considering it as part of infrastructure that needs to rescue this country from a food security challenge or the region from a drought effect? So I think it's about how we place it in our priorities.
And totally hear you, because the investments are also important. Resources is very important. But I'm just thinking then, doesn't that take a collective effort? Yes, governments and countries could pump in, money, investments, and making sure that, the resources are there. But if this person, who is the farmer, or the ones like David's case, who, grow and produce for commercial purposes, if they do not have that information, then it doesn't matter how much investment is put in there. If the correct information is not there, then,
you see, what these two are connected.
Yeah.
It is not one or the other.
Yeah.
If there's a strategy at the country, for example, Somalia, they are saying that we are now going to do just to know where we are doing a self-diagnosis on how vulnerable or how sustainable we are in the feed sector. Now, the strategies they make include informing farmers. They include broadcasting information using the radios and these media programs to ensure that farmers know what to do. It is not that we either go macro or micro. No, they are connected. That actually any macro level strategy, like for example, the tax, you were discussing tax before we came. The government sits and decides we are going to have a tax around this and this. The next day, some small businesses are being called to pay a tax. A strategy that was designed at the top level has now reached down because it doesn't happen in isolation. However, if you do it the other way, it's possible for farmers to be struggling. Their cows are dying, their children are getting stunted, but it does not connect to the top. So it's actually worse if we leave it to be done by what farmers can do, how much banks can lend. And you can say private sector, if you guys have money, you let the farmers, if they come, they qualify for loan, give them. If they don't qualify, leave them. But the question is, are these farmers actually helping us deal with the food security problem? If they're helping us, then we should be involved in whether they are funded to invest in fodder. And we should not even wait for an investor to come and say, I'm interested. We should be inviting, because we have a problem. Come help us solve a problem that is hitting us very hard. We can't feed our people, we can't employ.
I totally hear you. All right. So David, because literally we have like 3 minutes, we need to end the conversation. So then how do we get to that level of sustainability from your point of view? He's talked about at a policy level, government level, investments need to be made, and also make sure that all these people are on the same table when these conversations are being held. So then how do we get to that level of sustainability so that 5 years later we do not have such conversations about how not feed secure we are as a region and as a people?
I think as Dr. Malwa said, fodder commercialization will be like a perfect solution to this. Because as farmers, currently in Kenya, we have a cereal boards. When you grow maize, you harvest, you take your maize to cereal board. If I have a silage today and it's sitting with me in like in a store, and maybe have a facility with the bank, you need to be servicing it. How are you going to be sustainable yourself? Yet you want to support other people. So what we need to do is have things like fodder reserves, of which you can be harvesting and storing your fodder there, so that when this time comes, we have a drought, you just pick your silage from your reserves. And this can't happen it's not an individual responsibility, it's a collective responsibility. And this is what happens with most NGOs when we have a drought. We rush to give people food rations, but we don't have anything
Even
for the
governments
animals.
as well. Yeah.
I was talking to David Maina some time back, and I was telling him, if you support a family with, let's say, a bale of silage that it's about 600 kilos, a cow will only take maybe 5 kilos of that, and it's 60% water. Yet we are walking our cows 60 or 30 kilometers to go and drink water. Yet the person walking the cow is already malnutrition. So if you give this cow maybe some silage, it has the water, it will produce good milk, which is good for the nutrition of the family. And at the end of the drought season, these people will be healthy. But what happens in current situation, at the end of the drought, all people have is empty packets of unga and rice, and all the animals are dead. Can we look at it in the other? Can we support the animals so that these animals can support the families?
I really like that. I really like that. Let me take that as a parting shot. Dr. Amalo, very briefly, because we literally need to end the conversation now. So in terms of how then do we get to that level of sustainability that David talked about? And this is across the region, not just one country or one area is feed secure as compared to the others. How do we get to that level?
It is strengthening utilization of early warning tools for early action. Like, for example, Kenya, Somalia, Sudan, Uganda, we helped them develop these early warning tools, the feed inventory, a predictive livestock early warning system, so that they can know the areas where there is surplus production versus demand, and areas where there is deficit. So in that way, it will help the country so that they can be able to strategize and stock maybe or preposition this feed in places where there is a deficit. It is happening very well in Ethiopia, but of course it needs to be taken forward. And in Kenya, of course, NDMA uses these tools very well. So if they utilize it very well, it will help very much to know the demand versus supply, because they always say, if you cannot measure it, you cannot effectively manage it.
Let me take that, let me take that so that we do not dilute. Very, very powerful way. 10 seconds, literally, David, as we cut this up, get to system. You've talked about a lot of things, investments, actors, all those things.
Thank you, Winnie. I think because now we have rains coming, maybe just what farmers can do is to go to the seeds company which are selling fodder seeds, grow before the rains. And anybody who has an empty store, fill it up before the rains. We may not do huge strategies in the short time because we have, say, like 2 or 3 weeks, I don't know. But what we can do within the 10 days or so, let's fill our stores, let's plant a lot of fodder. We'll be in a better place when the rains are over. Then in the medium term, then governments, counties, cooperatives, they can begin to think how we can be at a better place when we have the next drought, which is forecasted already.
And we really hope that it doesn't, but by the time we get there,
we can wish it doesn't happen, but it's going to happen.
It will happen.
And the cycles in the history can tell us what's happening.
We
don't have to, we can pray, we can do all the things we want, we can wish that things are going to happen, but let's prepare.
Let's prepare.
Let's prepare
really,
as
really
if
like
it's
that.
going to happen.
Yeah, I'd really, really like that. Let's prepare. All right, David Maina, feed and fodder business development expert, African Union. Thank you so much for coming by this morning. David Otieno, co-manager, Osquest Farm. Asante sana for your time this morning as well. And last but not least, Dr. Amalo Kinjui, animal health expert, IGAD, that is from the Center for Pastoral Areas and Livestock Development as well. Thank you so much for your time this morning, and we sure hope that these conversations continue as well from all levels, okay, so that we're all together in this, because at the end of the day, we all get affected or impacted in one way or the other. So let's keep the conversation going online at NTV Kenya, both on Facebook and on Twitter. But for now, enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you tomorrow morning, same time, same place, right here on Your World. My name is Winnie Lubembe. God bless. See you tomorrow.